Viva. So today my research is about English communication differences between millennials and Gen Z in Sri Lanka. So when we're talking about the background of this study, so the study examines the differences in English communication between millennials and Generation Z in Sri Lanka. So talking about the English language, English is a global language crucial for academic research, professional careers and international collaborations. English as a global language and as well as a British language, English helps people from different linguistic backgrounds communicate with one another globally. It is commonly acknowledged that English is the primary language used in academic publications, research papers and scientific literatures. English is used in academic publication, research paper presentation and workplace communication as well. So talking about the background of the study, I explain about how English has an impact for global. How English impact in Sri Lanka. We have different kind of English called as Sri Lankan English. So Sri Lanka's trilingual country, which we speak Sinhala, Tamil, and English. Sri Lankan English, also known as SLE, as a recognized variety we are using Sri Lankan English from 1972. So we share similarity from Indian English due to the British colonial influence. So the key features of Sri Lankan English is influence of Sinhala loanwords and Tamil origin vocabulary, such as sometimes we are using some Sinhala Sri Lankan English like Amma, Aki, like for example OG and CC like Colombo City Center, and unique pronunciation and word usage variation compared to other varieties. So we talk about what's about English language. So what's the difference between the millennials and Generation Z? So millennials, the people who are born between 1981 to 1996, and Generation Z are the people who were born 1997 and 2012. Millennials experience structured learning, traditional classroom environments, and formal English use, but Gen Z grew up with the technology, digital learning tools, and social media influencing their communication style. Also, it was explained by Silva and Grace in 2017. Technology's roles in English communication, Gen Z prefers digital platforms, instant messaging, and online learning apps. Millennials favor structured emails, formal languages, and face-to-face interactions. So, what is the research problem? So, communication is the key professional and academic success. Millennials and Gen Z have different communication styles, causing potential miscommunication in workplaces. Lack of sufficient research on how these differences impact workplace efficiency, and explain how these two age group engage in English communication, focus on their preferences, depend on technology, they utilize their language methodologies using Sri Lankan English. So the recent question is, there is recent focus on the English language communication differences between millennials and Gen Z by understanding differences between two generations of using English language communication in modern society in Sri Lanka. The first research question is, how does learning English language differ between Generation Z and millennials? How Sri Lankan English will be impact for both generations? And how do millennials and Generation Z differ in the usage of digital technology platforms in English communication in workplaces? My research objectives are to explain the communication and learning differences between the two generations, improving the globalization in the world, cultures, traditions, as well as languages have been integrated. From this research will be explained how English language communication difference had been impact Sri Lankan millennials and Generation Z. To explain how process, the learning and communication English differ between two generations, to explore the influence of Sri Lankan English on communication styles of both generations, to examine the usage of digital platforms and technological tools by millennials and Generation Z for English communication in workplaces. So my literature review is talking about, firstly talking about the English as a global language. So English has become a dominant language for the English has become the dominant language in international communication, business, and academic. And with over 1.2 billion speakers worldwide, English is recognized in lingua franca for professional and academic discoveries. So English is most widely spoken language in worldwide. It plays a crucial role, as I said, academic publishing, business and professional networking, communication skills including listening, speaking, reading and writing as well. So these are the general characteristics of two generations. Technological exposure, millennials grew up with early internet, and Gen Z were born into the digital era. Preferred communication is emails, formal meetings by millennials, and Gen Zs are instant messaging, real-time feedback. Learning styles are structured, scheduled sessions for millennials, digital self-paced learning for Gen Zs. Workplace interaction, millennials love to have group discussion and scheduled calls, but Gen Z love to have short messages and voice notes. So again, the workplace communication between the millennials and Gen Zs. So millennials value structured collaboration through meetings and group discussion, whereas Gen Z prefer asynchronous. I don't know how to pronounce that. Asynchronous communication, digital collaboration tools, communication with managers, which millennials prefer. Like millennials expect formal feedback sessions and scheduled performance reviews, while Gen Z prefer instant feedback through informal check-ins. In professional communication method, millennials rely on emails and structured report, whereas Gen Z favors quick digital interactions like chat messages and voice notes. The roles of Sri Lankan English in generational communication. Sri Lanka.
Can I go for literature? All right.
So, talking about the research gap is while extensive studies examine global generation differences in communication, limited research focus on Sri Lankan millennials and Gen Zs, and also there aren't much research regarding about how the two generations using the Sri Lankan English. The impact of Sri Lankan English on professional and academic communication, limited studies on English communication differences in Sri Lanka, how technology shapes English language communication among Sri Lankan youth, and effective teaching strategies to bridge communication gaps between generations. So I collected data as a quantitative approach and utilizing non-experimental correlation.
Why quantitative? I was just thinking.
Actually, sir,
it's a very interesting research that you are doing. Ideally, it should be my perspective. If I did it, I would have used qualitative and discourse analysis.
I actually did too. I planned to do qualitative, sir. Unfortunately, the workplaces I applied, they declined. They actually called me and said, no, we can't take you. I don't know why. Actually, that's my first target because this research.
So when you said you are going to use quantitative, they accepted?
Yes, so I actually sent through Google, like WhatsApp, Instagram to people who are working, especially people I know and my colleagues as well. So that's how I got the quantitative result. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the qualitative, which has helped me to have a proper data and everything. But unfortunately, especially I focus on logistic industry, because in logistic industry they literally want to talk in English, but in there they speak in differently because I talk to them and they use Sri Lankan English mostly.
Can understand.
So I applied to them, I sent the letter, but unfortunately they said they can't take it. So the target population is millennials and Gen Zs. And I actually had total 64 individuals. Unfortunately, I couldn't tally the four.
So you have two groups?
Two groups.
In each group, how many?
So millennials I got 17, but Gen Zs I got 47.
Okay, so right, what are the? I'm sorry.
I actually wrote everything in here, but unfortunately I
demographic details, right?
I couldn't apply to this. I couldn't apply.
What is the demographic? Demographic is like.
Demography is gathered information such as age range, gender, and educational profession. And
Anyway, millennials have to be that age, no? Gen Zs have to be that particular age, no? Yes.
so like population couldn't tally. Is it okay? Couldn't tally?
That's okay. That's okay, my. This could have been more. Can I see your data? Did you use?
Yes, sir. I use only like a few in here. So these are summary of data analysis.
Can I go to your findings first?
So the findings is I talk about different learning styles like structured versus self-directed learning, technology preferences, email versus instant messaging, workplace communication style, formal versus informal. Millennials use I have introduced like I have explained formal versus informal communication between millennials and Gen Zs. Millennials use emails for their meetings, but Gen Z prefer instant messaging as I explained previously. So impact of Sri Lankan English on generational communication. Gen Z relies more on technology, whereas millennials balance traditional and digital communication. Sri Lankan English role varies between the two generations. And the suggestion I would give is for educators, adapt teaching strategies to match digital preferences. Sometimes when I research about that, some of the teachers are not using social media to teach for generation like new generations. So there is a huge gap where the children don't have the chance to learn new things, new communication styles through social media. And workplace strategies like implement flexible communication methods, try to use English communication with employees in day to day. Because I want to do this suggestion because in workplace, when we talk in English, they won't able to talk properly. So I suggest to talk at least in a work time they speak in English by using it's okay using Sri Lankan English, but try to use the proper English language. And for future research, for further investigation, for explore Sri Lankan English impact for future generation and help to investigate and elaborate for more details. So I actually focus on like Colombo area. So I just want to move on to for more places as well. So these are references I have used. So, yes, sir.